You are now listening to the podcast for geeks and the stuff they love, where each week we'll talk about everything from anime to movies, games, and prop collecting with the people who create and love it. I'm Jeremy.
I'm India.
And I'm Martin.
And this is your Geek Fix. We got to talk a little bit last time about both Martin and India and what they do and kind of your background. But I wanted to fill you out on some of the new kind of innovative things, some of the ways that production is going, and at the same time, some of the ways where it's kind of going backward, and get your kind of take on that, and some of the things do you enjoy as far as media that's out there. So one thing that I was kind of interested in throwing past you was the new show. It's a Netflix based show right now called Arcane. And you both have the opportunity to see that. If anyone out there hasn't quite seen this just yet, we're not gonna be spoiling it or anything. I did learn. I got to make a comment though. I meant to make this in the last episode. Was that last month? We do record these in advance, and so Vinz and I had actually talked about Doctor Strange and some things that we had heard were going to be in the movie, and of course that episode came out after it came out. So if people are wondering, that's the reason why. So I'm going to be careful too what I say this time. But at the same time, going back to Arcane, how do you think that was done? Do you feel like it was rendered that way? Do you what would be the way that you would approach that or do it with the knowledge that you have on animation and some of the programs?
There's some pretty incredible stuff that you can do with hand texturing and projection mapping on characters. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've definitely remember that Disney short Paperman where they essentially did 2D animation over the 3D models, and it made it feel that was it. And I want to say that maybe they had a degree of that on Arcane, but there's a distinct possibility that they just had a very clever render pipeline and it just made it look 2D and feel hand-drawn. It's definitely CG.
Some filtering, some CG stuff, that's what you're feeling? What do you think, India?
Yeah, I would say definitely CG animation. I don't know if I have no idea if they used Unreal.
Unreal Engine was used, yes.
Okay.
But...
And then I guess a lot of it looks like a lot of obviously set extensions and matte paintings and stuff to build the parallax. And then I wouldn't know whether they treat the sort of the 2D on top as I feel like it would be
we need to help the audience on this a little bit. So Parallax, explain Parallax first.
I guess to show what's the official?
So the difference between 2D, 3D movement, you can tell usually is given away partly by Parallax.
I guess you want to. Yeah, if you want
a feeling of depth.
Yeah. You can. It's kind of an illusion of perspective and overlapping elements to show that.
Yeah. But then if you have a fully CG set and everything is, you can see it's CG because every single angle is moving at the perfect way it is.
Right,
but with the Arcane stuff, a lot of it feels almost 2D because it's a lot of the parallax is handled in a way that's kind of sliding like
having a MultiPlane camera,
but like handmade.
It's always easier when something's farther away because you can get around the parallax errors that you can run into. Yeah. Right? It's far distance. I only have to shift it a little bit and it looks like there's depth of field. But okay.
Like if you had a MultiPlane camera, you can create that illusion. Or you can do that in like Toon Boom and have the sort of
Toon Boom.
Yeah.
I haven't used that for a little while now.
Yeah.
Now Toon Boom's more 2D animation, or at least it used to be. Is it?
Yeah. So
yeah.
I just at the end of my university time, they brought in a 3D camera element, so you can have multi-planes and sort of create that. That sort of fake
Faking
version
it.
of basically.
Yeah.
The
The Simpsons was done on Toon Boom for a little while. Yeah.
They use it on a lot of TV stuff now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty.
So come on then, Jerome.
Yeah.
Jeremy, sorry.
Yeah.
Tell him, Jeremy.
That's right.
Tell us.
Jeremy.
J Dog, come on.
Yeah. So I will say this. I'll give you this much, and then get your perspective on the percentages. There's two departments for this. There was a 3D department, and then there's a 2D department, right? Mm-hmm. Like old school 2D department. Okay. What percentage do you think of what you saw was handled by each department? Like how do you think this was more on which side?
I would imagine that it would have been fully animated in CG and then drawn over by 2D. Yeah, the characters.
Effects maybe.
Yeah, I'd say the effects and I don't.
The Spider-Verse, they had ink lines, where they.
Oh yeah.
But that was.
Was that rendered though, or did they go back and do that post?
Yeah,
it was rendered.
They have a bit of. They have some 2D effects artists, but then they also have like CG rendered.
There are some filters for that.
Yeah, percentage.
Yeah.
Don't know. 7. Let's see. 60-40. No.
60-40 on which side?
Yeah. 60 CG.
60 CG?
I'm gonna go with 61-39.
61-39.
61 is the CG.
Okay.
39 is the 2D. I'm about to get burnt because it's going to be the other way around.
It is the other way around. This was mostly a two-dimensional. When I say old school, I mean like they used even hand painting for some of this. So those backgrounds and things you did pick out. There's some old school matte painting stuff that they did do. But they use as far as what you could do through CG, you could do lighting, you could do coloration. None of that was done using CG. That was all hand-drawn, hand-painted coloration and effects and lighting. And so it's just the figures themselves that they kind of used and animated. Oof. and then everything else is drawn, so it gives it that nice. I mean, it really is a pretty. I think there's a lot of shows out there that are great examples of this is really pretty. But maybe the story, even if the storyline isn't great, like it's like, oh, this is worth seeing just to see, some of that. But
I don't know if this isn't necessarily an unpopular opinion, but it's definitely not an opinion that maybe I should be saying as an animator. But I don't really like when things are animated, and I don't mean that I don't mean that as like I hate animation. But there's a tendency it's the worst. There's a tendency in a lot of especially feature animations, especially a lot of the bigger studios will over animate something where it's so polished, it's so smooth, it's so clean that it ends up feeling like everything is just a plastic toy. And that's fine if it's a plastic toy like Toy Story, but then there are definitely examples of studios that I won't name, but they do this hyper polished, super clean movement, and everything's just so soupy and loose. And I think giving it that hand-crafted feel is so important, and I think that Arcane does that so well. I think.
Oh yeah, I think there's a lot of studios that they have their proprietary stuff too that they tend to use, like you're mentioning. I remember the switch over for Disney from when we had the frame animation to the 3D, and then it was like they just went all 3D, which is fine. And it carries a story and everything else but at the same time, like you said, I mean, there was several things that could still be used that I think for ease and time and then eventually money too. They kind of just went all with, like they put it all just on what the computer could produce. And
there's also, but there was even a period where obviously the process with traditional animation is you have your animator will go in and do their loose, rough animation in pencil, and then you'll have somebody go in and clean it up, and they'll ink it and they'll color it and
some animatics and stuff.
Yeah, and even that step for me loses a bit of charm because as an animator, I want to see the looseness of their lines. I want to see the character kind of, because they're drawing the weight into the pencil sketches, and if you're going to do like a perfect inked line over it, and so there was a point in Disney 2D animation and in all 2D animation really where at least Western 2D animation, where everything was just so clean because it was done in computer, because it was inked over digitally. And then if you see these films now in 1080p or in 4K even, they don't look good to me because they're so unnecessarily clean. It looks like almost like an illustrator. Yeah. Like it's Bezier curves, and it's not you don't feel the hand under it anymore.
Right.
And there are some older 2D animations, I want to say, like maybe The Fox and the Hound, and definitely Dalmatians, where they've still got the sketchiness, and it looks really cool seeing that like life to it. And I think we need more.
You can see the lines that they didn't quite erase. You ever notice that? Exactly. Like there's a line under the arm or whatever.
There was a human.
Yeah, exactly. That's cool.
Yeah, Disney, going back to Parallax, Disney invented back in the day a way to get around it with cell animation, which was that they had this big contraption that the cells could be slid into on multiple layers, and then you could actually zoom and blur different layers and all that. But then the downside was with cell animation is even just laying on top of each other, 4 layers, you'd get that blurriness, the lines and things like you watch old episodes of The Simpsons or something versus when they switched over to Toon Boom. It makes sense that they eventually switched over and did digital stuff, but
I mean, it makes sense for like 85% or 99% of animators, because most of the time you're not. There are a few animators. I mean, there's an example of a guy called Milk Call that's always brought up, and he did Shere Khan. He did a lot of the very like he did like the wizard in Sword and Stone. And so his drawings are phenomenal, and they're all beautiful. But that's not the case for a lot of artists, and so you probably couldn't have those in. I mean, if I was drawing, you'd want to draw over them. You wouldn't want to have my picture. But the actually talking about the MultiPlane camera, the thing they use to do the parallax, they've actually still got it at the Walt Disney Animation in Burbank, and it's such a cool bit of technology that is huge. Yeah. It's massive.
Real tall.
Like
I'd be useless. I'm like 5 foot. I'd be like.
Well, they've got like these ladders that they're climbing up, and there's pictures of these men in their kind of their waistcoats and stuff in the 1950s or wherever, climbing up, and they've got their pencil mustaches, and they're like angling the different things, and like everything's precisely measured out. It's really fascinating, like the science that goes into it.
And it looked good. I mean, for the time, it looked really good. But yeah, again, it's like, okay, so we switched over for a reason, and then things got a little too clean. But now it's the opportunity to be able to start mixing it up again and being creative and doing some things that are kind of new and different. Speaking of which, so Studio Ghibli or Ghibli or Ghibli, however you want to say it, they tried recently to switch from their standard 2D stuff to 3D. Did you get to see any of that?
I think I saw the trailer. I didn't.
Yeah.
Think
it wasn't. It wasn't a Ghibli movie, right?
No. Yeah. And it's really hard to do CG animation like in a relatable way. Like there's a reason that Pixar do some of the best stuff, because they've sort of had a lot of practice. They've had a lot of they've made a lot of mistakes, and
honed it. Yeah,
they've got a lot of clever people in there to kind of solve a lot of those problems and bring the humanity back into it. So but that Ghibli film, I don't know if it might be wonderful, and I don't want to say anything too disparaging about it without seeing it. But the trailer that I saw didn't look like they maybe were struggling with the pipeline and with getting things to be.
Yeah. Well, and it was something we talked about last time. I mean, your fans get to. There's a reason why you might have a fan base in some cases, and they have a certain thing that they're expecting to see, and then you mix it up. It's not that it was horrible. It's just it wasn't what we would standard say was one of their movies. Is the big thing, and kind of what makes them them.
And it's their fault for making movies that are so beautiful.
That's right. That's what it is.
High
right?
expectations.
Yeah. It is. Unfortunately, but at the same time, I think that was the issue for them, was people being able to accept that. Wallace and Gromit switching over to 3D animation. Also, I mean, same kind of thing. I think people will have a hard time accepting that.
Although if you watch the old Wallace and Gromit, like the very first ones where you can still see the thumbprints in them, actually, I don't know if I like them as much as when they started to get a better workflow for the stop motion. Like once the maquettes were maybe not made out of clay, they were probably made out of a
silicone. The parts that you pop on, pop off. Yeah, they did switch over to that.
I think I'd find that it's almost like the difference between the early episodes of The Simpsons and once they kind of got a bit more grown up like that.
Well, I think their studio burnt down every single time that they made something. Literally, like they've lost their studio so many times with everything that's in there. I'm sure it's got to be easier at some point to say, let's just keep it all on a computer that we can and drives that we can flow to somewhere else and stuff. But
exactly.
I don't know. So Wallace and Gromit, the thing that I think about with that, which was kind of the other thing I wanted to ask you guys about, because India's had a lot of experience with this recently, is I used to go with my dad to the animation film festivals every year, which was the only way you could really, that was how we got introduced to Wallace and Gromit, and that was the only way you could see them back then, was every year, they'd have, or they tried to, they introduced a new one. There's only been a few, so I can't say it's every year, but at the same time, that was the big part of the reason why I went, was for that, and then to see some other things, and you'd go to some dive theater in downtown, where they had couches and beanbags on the floor and stuff like that. I mean, that's where you go for those, right? But at the same time, I mean, animation film festivals. Can you, India? Tell us about the woes and the benefits of these film. How many have you done this year to get your Cat and Moth out there?
That's a good question. Let me see. I actually have the list.
It's an indication when you have to look it up.
What are we at? I think we're in 18 at the moment.
Wow.
Or like we have either been or are going to be, and we've got to about 18. We've applied to, I don't know, 3 or 4 times that. And it's an interesting process, like being a part of them. Some of them you're more involved than others. Depends on the type of festival and how they utilize the filmmakers.
Right.
Some of them is like, we're screening a film, and that's amazing. Some of them there was a local one here, Vancouver Short Film Festival, and it was like a weekend, and they had a ton of like filmmaker events. So if your film was in the festival, you could join like all these sort of online meetups. There was like presentations, some other networking opportunities. So it does range from that. And then there's different like levels of attendance. There was one in Manchester that we went to. Actually, our composer went to.
Oh yeah, and I saw that recently. I saw it on Twitter.
Yeah, and it was the cool thing about that one is like I wish I could have gone. There was like events every day. They had like laser tag and like movie, like all sorts of crazy events for the people.
Hopefully
attending.
not during a screening.
No, in the dark.
It's very interactive.
Yeah, exactly. So it's been really interesting. That's definitely the positive side of it, is like the networking, the community, the meeting people, and that was the reason I went really, or started to look at this process. I met with someone who basically said, you've got to ask yourself, why do you want to apply to film festivals? Like, what's your goal?
Right.
So if you're, whatever your goal is, it's valid, but you need to have that as your focus.
What is your goal?
That's
curious.
Yeah. So for me, it was the networking. I was like, okay, what I realized is I didn't have one when he asked me. I was like, oh yeah, I was just doing it because that's what people do.
Right.
And then after that, I realized that actually I want to meet other filmmakers. I want to make more films, and I want to learn from these people. And I want to meet these like festival organizers, I guess, programmers, because they watch so many films. They know a lot, obviously, about what they're showing. So that has really paid itself back in that way. I'd say the woes are probably like the bit I didn't expect is all the admin.
Oh yeah.
Like once I applied, I was like, cool, did it. And then a lot of the festivals require different lengths of written statements, different types of photos, different sizes of photos, different qualities of like stills and
different types
different
of formats.
Different edits. Yeah, different edit.
You got to have your own PR department almost.
Basically, yeah. So between me and Martin exports all the formats, all the like DCPs and all that stuff. Yeah.
As far as being able to go, because you have gotten to go to a few yourself, do you go to some of the other? Some of the other showings and things like that. Have you been able to see some new and exciting things?
So far, I haven't been able to go to any in person.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But I have gone virtually, and the couple of ones, the Vancouver Short Film Festival, because it was here and it was online, we were able to watch pretty much more or less all of the films that were there, which was really nice. And predominantly it was live action, so there was a few really cool animated shorts. There was one guy and his partner had made a short film. It was like stop motion. I think it's called The Lost Seahorse. And it's very nicely done. He's a puppeteer. He makes like visual effects, special effects, real life puppets and
I got
things for like horror movies and things. So they had this really cool like silicon seahorse maquette thing. So there was some really nice films through that. A lot of the festivals are geo-locked to their location.
Oh yeah.
So I won't if it's online, I won't necessarily get to see them.
So I've wanted to see Cat and Moth, and I made a few attempts.
I thought I sent it to you.
No.
Oh no.
Like the actual show?
Oh no. Well, I'll send it to you.
I tried joining. There was a film festival. That was one of the upsides to these film festivals being, remote this past couple of years. And I did try to do one that I talked to you about how I was trying to get it. I got it paid for, and then they wouldn't let you see everything.
No.
And I guess they gave some of the artists the right to be able to. I think it's so that people wouldn't take their stuff. Like they really wanted it to be seen in person or something. So that one didn't work out. And then I tried a couple other things and stuff. And I still haven't seen it. So is there a way everybody can see it, or is this just something?
Not yet. No.
Okay.
So at the moment, there's we have the private screener that is for the festivals, but there's a lot of rules and regulations around them. Like you can only show up to 10% of the footage online. For because the festivals want people to go to their festival.
Yeah, it makes sense. And they want it to be new and fresh.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They want it. They want the exclusivity of that. So, but I can definitely send you a
when will it eventually go more public?
I think looking at the festival schedule, we're sort of looking early next year.
Okay.
Because a lot
of
them,
how will you release that? Like, what would you do? Like
carry a pigeon.
Yeah, that's a good way to go.
Just attach them to pigeons.
You're going a little too underground there.
Yeah. Just printing out each individual frame and attaching it to a pigeon. It's got to fly past at 24 frames a second.
VHS. No, probably.
That would be cool.
Betamax.
That would be nice, right? Probably Vimeo.
Oh yeah, that's a good way to go. So I got another one for you to try and guess on. So we did an animation actually this last year, and a really short one in our we did a third Pip-Boy video that I somewhat regret because it was really involved. But it was an hour long. But yeah, it had a 2-minute animation which I sent to India. Is actually gave me feedback before we released it. But my question for you is, what do you think I used to make it?
I would say either After Effects or Blender.
I was going to say
After Effects or Blender?
Mm-hmm.
What's your thought, India?
I was also going to say... Well, I think if you hadn't said about not hearing about Toon Boom in a while, then I would have said Toon Boom. But I think probably After Effects.
After Effects? That was animated using Flash 4.
Flash.
Like back when it was still owned by
course.
Macromedia.
Yeah.
Like way back in the day. Because there was a couple things I wanted to do with it that I couldn't get other programs to do, so I had to do a cheat.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the reason why I'm bringing that up is that back in the day, before they made it so you can't do anything with any type of Flash anymore, I remember when that very first came out, my first graphics job was because when I applied, the night before they released Flash and they released the demo, the free demo. So I learned it, stayed up all night, learned the demo, and the next morning when I did my interview with this company, it was called Palm Tech. I don't know if they're still around or not, but I said, yeah, actually I've learned Flash 4, and I showed them a couple small things I did, and that got me that job.
Nice.
But the benefit back then was there were all these people that were making animation, because this is 56K, times. So we're not talking like you make a video and then you release it. Like if you released a video, it had to be like 30 seconds long and stuff like that. And with Flash, you could do something that was a half an hour long and streamed across. So there was literally like animation film festivals of people that were, creating stuff and putting it out almost daily. And you got to see what they made as they made it. And I remember thinking that was so cool because there was just such a huge community of people, and there was so much out there that you could see, and it was taking something that was very limited in what it could do and then making it do things that were kind of broader and stuff. Do you feel like there's stuff like that right now? Do you feel like there's things that are out there that really lets you to be able to tap into or to be able to see, what people are experimenting with and to be able to join in on it? Because I kind of, while you're thinking about it, I remember the same thing was true when Oculus, back when the dev kits were still out. You used to be able to go on and they were all free games, but, or whatever was created with it. And you got to see, again, things that people were turning out daily. That were just unique, interesting, new, because, and just sharing what they were developing so that other developers could do something similar.
Yeah, there was definitely a big peak in the, I can't remember what the animation software was on the Oculus, but there was Quill and painting ones, and so I saw a lot of that, popping up, especially, I don't know if it was pre-pandemic or pandemic, but I remember seeing a bunch of tutorials about how I painted this massive landscape and how I did this animation. But lately,
I feel like a lot of them. Yeah, I think the bar for entry for Flash is so low. Like right. you really just need your imagination and a fairly okay computer. Yeah, and I feel like which also is a Radiohead album. Just the fairly okay computer. It was one of the less successful ones. I think like I'm thinking now, like maybe the thing that we're on the verge of seeing a lot of is AR stuff. But I feel like to have like a successful AR pipeline, probably need a fairly robust setup. I don't think it's just something. Whereas VR maybe
it's not as accessible.
Yeah, easier to just kind of open up Unreal Engine and mess about with things and
I guess Blender's free and it has this 2D.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, it's free and there's also again a huge community out there. Unreal
play with the 2D stuff.
Yeah, there's some really cool stuff happening that people are now Unreal 5's come out and they're like, I saw there was a walkthrough of a train station the other day and it was like. It was like to my trained eye, I could tell, but it was real close. Like it was freakishly close. It's like, oh, that kind of isn't far from real.
It's unreal.
So I I think actually to circle back to what you were saying about those kind of garage, like people working out their garage and like making like gadgets, and people coming up with like their own stop motion animation, and then people like these sort of small communities. I'm pretty sure they exist, and I'm sure that I'm doing them a disservice by not knowing what they are, but it doesn't feel like that like it almost feels like we've got to the point where we've worked out how these things are best served and how they best function, and we've moved on to the point now where we're just trying to use them to tell the best stories possible. Or use them as the best.
My brother has recently been doing I think they're called game jams.
That's true though. Yeah.
And so it's a lot of like 2D sprites, and you get like maybe a week or two, and you get paired with someone, and you have to make a game, and you just have to go and finish it in that time.
Wow, really?
And then afterwards, you can give that out, and like we played it and stuff and things like that. So I guess there's like that sort of thing is existing. The
that's
sort
true.
of jam side.
There's a lot of communities where they do 48-hour, like you basically just get given a broad theme, and you can do it in any way you want. If you want to do it in 3D or 2D or just like a visual novel or whatever, but as long as it's a interactive experience, that stuff's pretty cool. There's some. I think there's some actually pretty notable games that have come out of those. I think that I want to say there's that game Outer Wilds. I don't know if you played that, which is a phenomenal like the
VR wise
time loop and going through like it very clever like 30-minute game, but that was a game jam. I think that was like a 2-day game jam where they just quickly came up with this idea, and
I was so bad at that game.
It's very hard to control.
Yeah. I think it's all about whenever there's a new innovation that's accessible enough, then you get to see a lot of things that are inventive and new and that inspire you as well, and kind of get things going. And Unreal Engine, I think to a certain extent, has done that too. I mean, now you can have little pebbles and things that individually you can pick up. I mean, people are going to do stuff with that's never been seen before, of course, and integrate a lot of things. But yeah, it's interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see what's next this down the pipeline. Speaking of which, next week, I want to ask you guys a little bit about some retro gaming and things. So stay tuned for that. If you enjoyed this podcast and you want more, stay tuned. But also check out their channel and join our community on YouTube that goes by the same name, Your Geek Fix. Also check out India and Cat and Moth. India, what's the places where they can see those things right now, or that they can best talk to you?
You can check out a lot of the updates from Cat and Moth on Instagram and Twitter under the same name, Cat and Moth. And I am also on Instagram and Twitter under INDI_POPS Indie Pops.
Perfect. And if you want to get a hold of Martin, apparently write India, because he's gone underground. So
I'll just be behind her and to the left a little bit.
That works. We love for you to be a part of this podcast as well. So send your questions and stories to yourgeekfix@gmail.com. In the meantime, this has been Your Geek Fix.